welcome to Make Your Own Fun. We are joined today by poets Scott Ferry and Daniel McGinn, and they collaborated on this wonderful book here, Fill Me with Birds, that's on Meat for Tea Press. So I guess, Scott, I feel like we've all got one. I think it was planned or something. So Scott,
Everybody should have one. Yes.
Scott, I think maybe we met before, but I don't know if we have met in person before. So I'd kind of like to start with you and just, I guess, ask the question. Maybe some people are wondering, where did you and Daniel first meet? Do you remember where and when that was years ago?
Yeah, I mean there were poetry readings in the 90s in SoCal. I frequented the um, Laguna
Java
Poet
Garden. Java
and
Garden.
Java Garden,
Okay.
and yeah, we saw each other a few times. We He actually bought one of my books, and I think I bought one of his way back when. Um,
Good
and
impression, yeah.
we were I don't think we were like friends, but we knew of each other and we read together, at readings. But it probably wasn't until, much later when we connected on Facebook, uh, I don't know, 8 years ago, whatever, when we reconnected, that we really started becoming closer friends.
Okay. Okay.
You
Oh,
see
there
that?
it is.
Yeah, that's what chapbooks looked like in 1995. We used the whole sheet and we'd staple it together. This
Oh
is
Yeah,
man.
before computers are really rolling.
Well, did you
One
guys
gig
do
was a lot back in 1995.
the whole, what is it, like 11 by 17, fold it in half, staple it at the Kinko's FedEx Kinko's thing? Did you ever do
That's
that? That's
more
what I did.
97,
yep. That was
97,
the Chico
98, I
special.
think.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
sold them for like $5 at a reading. You just had you
they were
slapped on your
always
own cover art, you
$5.
stapled it in the middle, and you're like, "That's my new book."
We
Um,
traded them more than we sold them, which
oh
I
yeah,
think
because poets,
probably has
famously,
not changed that
are
much.
not millionaires. So Daniel, let me ask you, following up on what Scott said. So how did Fill Me with Birds as a project get started between you? And, did you guys instinctively know they would be a good fit with your styles, or just you were throwing it out there to each other?
I think I'm the one who threw it out there. I was listening to an interview with him about collaboration, and I felt like I could do it with this guy. And he sent me his, you have long titles. The best you can do is to grow, or what is the title of that other book?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The only thing that makes sense is to grow.
The only thing that makes sense is to grow. He sent me a copy of that, and I did a blurb on it. But I knew from that Scott and I had kind of a similar thing in that we we didn't write about big things so much as we wrote about day-to-day things and life things. And so yeah, it seemed like a pretty easy, natural fit. The first poem I wrote after Scott was not in the book. It was before we were collaborating. So I was already, interested in communicating with him in that manner.
Okay. So take me through the process, when putting together a book with two writers. So was there something in mind where you just said, well, let's write a bunch of stuff individually, share it with each other online, or just, for other people that are maybe thinking about collaboration projects, how did that work for you guys? Was that the process?
Yeah,
Just
pretty much. I
individually
mean,
writing and then, okay, I'll send you some. What do you think about this? Or,
yeah, we just started writing, and then I would send him a poem, and then he would send me a poem just on either usually email or Facebook, and then it started going pretty fast at one point. I'm used to working faster, and Daniel was like, "Oh crap, I better keep up," kind of thing.
oh, crap.
Because I just, I don't really edit very much. I just, I kind of vomit up a poem and so to speak, and then there it is. And I kind of fiddle with it, but I'm not one of those people that really does a whole lot of editing. And I think Daniel does much more editing than me. So it was kind of like a learning process for us to work at a speed that would work for both of us. But the content just kind of was organically driven. Like, okay, well, I'm going to take a word or concept from this poem and then just run with it. And it wasn't planned. It just kind of fed off each poem fed off the next. And then at the end, when we had to edit it, we did have to take some poems out that we felt weren't strong, or and then fit some in, and then get to a place where it all flowed. But it wasn't really that hard to make it flow because we kind of were doing that already just naturally.
Okay, okay. So
I
Scott,
think it was
go ahead, Daniel.
it was a conversation. But I think with some of the poems, I wasn't a good listener, and that happens when, well, you ever read a poem and you don't get it, and then you read it a year later and you go, oh, I get this completely. Well, with the span of time, sometimes my response really wasn't appropriate to what he was saying. But I think you said advice for anybody doing this: don't start out knowing you're writing a book, because we were just playing
Yeah,
and enjoying the process itself of trying to listen to the poem that was presented and trying to respond, not literally respond, using it like a trigger. Like, often if somebody gives you a prompt and you start writing and a poem starts coming, it's best to ignore the prompt and just kind of listen for the poem itself to come. But I think it was never more than play to us, right? It was fun. We were having a good time.
Oh yeah, it was, and I think that's what it's supposed to be. If you do a collaboration, it's not supposed to be like pulling teeth. It's supposed to be playful. It's supposed to be, all right, well, here's this. Now jump off from here, and then I'll jump off again. And it's supposed to be kind of like Daniel said, like a dialogue, but also like almost like just jumping into the ether together, and just seeing what happens, and not trying to guide it too much.
and I think that's good for any creative project, just the kind of leaving it open, not really saying what it is or what it should be, or or even really trying to imagine too hard, what it could be. It's just letting it be. So Scott, and I had to write these down. So, and I really wanted to ask you about this. Did the chilling end of "I have been sober for 19 months" come to you before the rest of the poem? Because I'm always really curious when people are putting stuff together, like what the inspiration was. And sometimes people come up with a title first, or it's kind of like you were saying, verbal vomit. Sometimes it all comes out, or was the end, because the ending of that poem just it just knocked me out. So I'm really curious about that one.
It's kind of like where I say that I could have been a dead man. Here it is. Oh, so I can hold my children instead of my corpse.
Yeah, I was like,
What page are we on?
that one I believe was
I just got to it.
15.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, so
Do you want to read
I don't
these? I'll read Faces in the Cliff and you read that.
that sounds great.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's just read them. And again, this is something I would never have written about if Scott hadn't done the preceding poem, but it's like he starts writing about something and I say, okay, I got to talk about this, even if it's uncomfortable. And a lot of times things that are uncomfortable, I don't want to write about, but I was writing about him anyway. He made me uncomfortable often. It's just the way the guy is. But even showing up late
In the
to
best
podcast.
way is
There
what
we go.
Daniel's
I
trying
like to
say.
bag on him. I think it's funny. Okay. Faces in the
Awkward.
Cliffs. Faces in the Cliffs. Some people don't have regrets. I can't relate to those people. I never could. I regret mistakes I made yesterday. I disappeared into rooming houses and hitchhiked for a few years. My past didn't know where I was. I hoped it wouldn't find me. The past didn't care about me. I was grateful for whatever drugs fell into my hands. I would take them all. There was a time when I didn't trust people who didn't do drugs. I didn't trust people. I became narcissistic like church people. Everything said to me was run through a filter of belief and disbelief. And if I had swallowed too much, I'd remind myself that this was only for the moment. I'd taken a drug and chose to allow it to take me. There was a time when I couldn't function. I'm okay now. When you talk about faces in the cliffs, it reminds me of voices in my walls. When they were loud, mine was just a whisper. I saw a lot of things and then I broke. I walked off the job at the sandwich shop. I couldn't stop crying. I took a psychic break. It's never been easy to write about this. People who have never been there tried to define it for me. What do they know? They weren't there. I can tell you I'm sober now in this moment. I'm a different person. Having children changed me. I'm grateful for that. Look how fragile we are. Look how beautiful.
Great.
Just fantastic. All right, I have been sober for 19 months because I realized I was waiting all day to drink, to silence the 17,000 voices, all declarations of war. And then I would swallow too much and the buildings would burn through my body at 3 a.m. and the firing squad would line me up, a child weeping, an adolescent vomiting, an adult holding a weeping version of myself. And I would feel the bullets enter and leave traces of lead in my breath. And then the next day I would begin again at the back of the line. But now I take antidepressants, state-sponsored hope enhancers, so I can speak without nausea, so I can form words of protection from myself, so I can hold my children instead of my corpse. No, I don't really think I was that far gone as an alcoholic, to be honest with you. I don't really even feel like I was an alcoholic, to be honest, but I was definitely using it as anti-anxiety medicine, which really didn't work. So I just decided to stop. I have that in my family, so I've seen people lose their children and lose just about everything from drinking or drug use. So I know that it's possible in me for that to happen, and certainly decided to, just give it up and live and not be a shell. So that's kind of what happened at the end there. I didn't really think I was going to become a corpse, to be honest with you, but part of me was struggling to the point where it wasn't able to be alive, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing both poems, guys. So there's one that I really related with Daniel. Let me ask you, Daniel, was there a particular childhood memory that inspired Buddha in the Deep End, or was it just like a collective feeling? Because I think we've all at some point, been in a pool or a lake or something and just sat on the bottom and floated up and had those thoughts and those images. So was that something like a collective kind of, or just one particular? Is there any? I'll just let you talk about it.
Yeah, no, we didn't have a pool, but my mother would take the kids, and there were 6 of us, so over to these people's house and friends of ours, and we would use their pool. And with 6 kids plus their kids, it was loud, and I used to like to sit on the bottom of the pool. I used to do that.
Yeah, I
Should
think
we
we can
read
all
that one,
relate. I'm
or
sure
do
Scott,
you
I'm
want us
sure
to
you
read
can
the ones
relate
you're
to that
asking
too.
about, or? I'll find that. Here it is. See, he's doing Looking Through Water, but I am half dreaming. I think I like that poem better. He writes a lot about, and if you go, he writes about his daughter and his son. I think more with his son, he writes about as his daughter gets older, but now his daughter is doing covers and such for the books. Probably
Yes.
you need a lot more attention to little ones than ones that are getting mature.
Right.
Buddha in the Deep End. I remember sitting at the bottom of the pool holding my breath, crisscross applesauce. My brain was getting bigger, sitting like the Buddha in the aquarium of the young. Here I am here. Here I am now. I don't sit on the floor much anymore. I've lost interest in the bottom of the pool. I remember my youth in the present tense, as if my life hadn't unspooled like a ball of yarn, as if my brain hadn't been shrinking for years. I sit myself down on a hard chair and mind my breath. I go down to the bottom of my mind and try not to think. I observe each bubble and let it go. The names of things, the people I love, the firm muscle, the tight skin, the arthritis setting in, the end of time knocking at my door. The sun goes down. Forget everything.
Great. Love that poem.
I love how just I kind of like Daniel said is that we write about everyday stuff, daily things, but we try to find something, I guess, bigger. The turn in the poem, which kind of allows something mundane to become supernatural or bigger than it is and allow everybody in. I think this one's a great example of that because somewhere in the middle, you're not talking about sitting in the bottom of a pool anymore. Um, and then your mind's kind of just expanding. So that's kind of what we do in this book. Should I read the poem before it?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I think that would be a good we have preface to Daniel's there.
Because that's kind of what led to that one. Looking up through the water at the sun, goggles clear, bubbles rising, the sting of the light filtered, the wars from above muffled, the ache of hunger and of growth stretching in the aquarium of my young body. I could only stay down there so long, watching noon snap and whirl from all sides, magenta, cyan, lemon, amniotic, thinking, this is God. This must be what God is. Only a glimpse, so close to breathlessness, but with so many breaths left.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I wanted to switch gears for a second and just kind of talk about some other poetry related things. And not sure if Daniel and I have discussed this in the past, but I'm curious to see what both of your takes is on the idea of obsessions of subject matters, could be people, places, things, as writers, as inspirations versus assigned writing exercises. So I know that we've all, taken classes and gone to writing seminars and things. So sometimes it's tough when you sit down and somebody just kind of drops a prompt in front of you versus something you're just so interested in. It kind of just feels like it's coming out of you. So I'd kind of just like to pick your brain a little bit and see what your experiences are with those. Either one of you can go
Sure.
first. It's fine.
I can start since I'm already talking. I haven't really ever been one for workshops. I never really came at poetry from an academic standpoint. I never got an MFA. I was an English major in college, but and then taught high school English for a bit. Now I'm a nurse, so I don't really, I've taken a couple of workshops just with my friends, but I feel like what I'm really trying to do here and what my purpose is with the writing is trying to get to kind of like the deepest, weirdest, darkest place I can in my psyche and bring something back from there. And I feel like if I'm given a topic in a workshop, I'm kind of like focused on writing for this group of people. And that's not what I'm care about. I don't give two craps about that, to be honest with you. So it kind of bothers me. It's just not for me. Okay. So if somebody gives me a writing assignment, oh, cool, maybe I can do something with it. But I don't really like the whole social event of it or the critiquing or all that other business. Just not for me. I just like to kind of just do my own thing.
That's fair. That's fair. That's honest. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll let Daniel go ahead and answer that one too. Just, if
I love
you
Brendan
got your own things.
Constantine's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Brendan Constantine has like little half-line prompts, like hide this for me. I wrote a poem I really like off that prompt. I used in the 30-30 just quotes I'd copy when I'm reading a poem. If I liked a line, I'd copy the line and I put them on 3x5 cards. And I've had those a long time, so I'd forgotten what the lines were. And I was just pulling those and trying to write off them. But sometimes I'd pull 4 or 5 before I got anything of substance out of them. And I used to haunt the poetry lab. I went there all the time, and Danielle would give prompts. But she was used to me that probably 9 times out of 10, I didn't do the prompt, but I would just start writing when everyone else started writing. But something about, as you were talking about before we started recording, being in a room full of poets will sometimes spark a poem that has nothing to do with what I'm being told is the subject matter for the day. I have a similar problem that he does, though, with just adhering to a prompt. Sometimes it comes naturally and I get something I like, but more often than not, prompts don't do it for me that much. The older I get, the less I want a prompt. I don't know. Just read a lot of poetry. Like you were talking about, you listen to poems and you'll get an idea when you're reading. So, reading poetry does that for me.
Okay.
Which is weird because
I really like the collaboration thing is that then that basically, like Daniel said before, that's kind of like a prompt. It's a conversation, but it's also a prompt. And that's kind of like a more organic way to, I guess, workshop with a friend.
But you notice I was not afraid to change the subject.
Like
If I didn't have anything, I would just change the subject.
Yeah.
Right? But I think some of, I don't know. I mean, how did we get so many birds in the book? We didn't know when we were writing it. The reference to birds are constant.
Yeah.
They really are.
Well, let me build on that real quick. And just wanted to touch on the obsessions part of the question that was kind of a longer question that maybe it should have been. But as an example, like for me, before I turned 40, I didn't really give a rat's ass about the Roman Empire or that part of history. I mean, I studied it in school and it was like, okay, I didn't see countless movies and documentaries, but just whatever. And then as I got older, suddenly these historical references started creeping up in my writing, not just poetry, but short stories or essays. And then I started using things, as metaphor, and then I'm going, why do I care so much? It doesn't affect my daily life, but next thing you know, anytime there's a television show or a new documentary coming out that focuses on anything from that, I just find myself watching it. It's not like I planned to or set aside time. Next thing you know, before I know it, I'm sitting there with a bowl of popcorn or whatever going like, did I really want to do this? But yeah, like, so outside obsessions that have nothing to really do with our daily life. I think, people find new hobbies and new interests, and then it just kind of works its way into our work, just life in general, just my 2 cents on that. But
I do don't.
okay.
Sorry,
So speaking
was,
about metaphors there, so why do you guys think that we as poets are inclined to make descriptions kind of couched in metaphor? Like, what is it about us as poets that we reach for metaphors as descriptions? Because I'm sure, we all have friends that either aren't writers or don't declare themselves as writers. So what is it about poets that all of a sudden we're just reaching for descriptive adjectives and metaphor? I just want to pick your brain about that. I mean, it's just something in us intrinsically, or is it something that, we work on over time?
I don't reach anymore. I remember when I was like 12, 13, trying to figure out why metaphor. But to me, it's not, it gets beyond the brain. It just hits you in a different place. It's not an intellectual thing, but even our slang has metaphor in it. I think it's just a natural thing that humans do. I feel like, well, like, okay, I'm writing Buddha in the deep end. And as you said, it becomes about something else. That's not a conscious thing. It is just the way it flows out of the pen. It's the way it comes out. I don't have to think about going there or the turn in the poem. I think I've been doing this since I was 17. I just start to turn the poem. I I don't think after a certain point it's a thing that takes effort.
Okay.
There are times when I'm writing a poem and I don't see the metaphor until much later.
Yeah.
And I think that was true in a lot of the poems we wrote in this book. Because we had to read it over and over again when we were editing and getting ready, it seemed to grow deeper every time I read it. There were all the poems started to bleed into each other, and it felt really different than anything I'd done before.
All right, Scott,
I
what's your
think,
2 cents?
I think to answer that, I would say that, if you're doing poetry, not really correctly, but if you're doing it from a deeper place, you're kind of already in this dreamscape world, this subconscious area, and the language of that area is a dream type language, and that is not a logical language. It connects things that not necessarily are going to be logically connected, and that's metaphor, right?
Mhm.
So, I think like a fish, or I don't know, whatever metaphor it is. It doesn't make sense logically, but that's the only way that you're going to describe something that cannot be fit into a linear language is by using metaphor, right? Because you're in that dream state.
Okay. I guess I'll just add on to that and say, just us as creatives, um, I'm always curious about why it is the way our brains are wired, where let's say you have a friend and say they're talking to you on the phone or in person and they said, "Oh, this crazy thing happened to me at the gas station," but it's just a cut and dry, practical A to B to C to D, and you're going, "That doesn't sound too crazy." But then if you're the friend that's telling the story, then at least for me anyway, I just find myself launching into these adjectives, and next thing I know, I'm doing voices for the people that were in line at the gas station, like, "Oh," and then this lady was like, "Oh, my eggs are blah, they're on the ground." Whereas I know I have friends that are just cut and dry, A, B, C, D, and then that's their crazy story about their things happening at the gas station. But my friends that are, writers, actors, painters, whatever, when we're expressing ourselves, like I was saying, we reach for the descriptive, the adjectives, the metaphors. So I don't know if that's just human nature for us as being creative types, that either we look for more devil in the details kind of things, or it's just the way our brains are wired. I don't know. I'm always just curious about that. I don't know if that's really a question, more of just a pondering kind of thing.
Well, it's funny because when my my conversation style and just in general, I really I'm more like the brief conversation type person. Get to the point. I'm done. Tell me this in 2 sentences. What I don't want to hear 5 paragraphs. Tell me in 2 sentences, especially if I'm at work, right? I'm like, no, I don't want to
Oh
hear all
yeah,
that.
if I'm at work, yeah, yeah,
Just
yeah.
give me
But if
the
you're just
details.
in person with somebody, yeah.
Right. But when I'm doing my art, that's very different. Then I like to jump off and just go everywhere. So it's just a different headspace, right? Because the function of it is not to communicate
Oh
something
yeah. Well, that goes right back to
soothing.
like
We
the
we
Jerry
we have a
Seinfeld thing. When
we have
somebody's
that in
talking to Jerry
common.
Seinfeld and the person's telling the annoying story, and he goes, "Yada yada yada," just wrap it up, just yeah, yeah, yeah. But when he, as the comedian on stage telling the story, then it's this whole elaborate 5 minute, 7 minute story, because it's the entertaining part of it.
Right.
That's just us as people. But well, I did want to touch on this too. So, how empowering is it to reject labels for writing? Because I feel like I'm one of those people that I don't want to say what, like we were talking about this earlier, what it's going to be, what it should be, what it is. So write it all down and let somebody else call it poetry. And we can say we're poets, and this is a collective book of poems. But when you're in that, you know, zygote idea, thunderclap, just trying to get this onto the page. Yeah, I don't know. I myself don't like to say whatever it's going to be, and I got to kind of get away from other people and have my private space. So, how we were talking about workshops earlier. So, is it invasive as a writer if somebody tells you, "Oh, it's got to be this. It can't be," and then like Scott, you were talking about that as well too, where it's like something, Daniel, you were saying that as well, that with prompts and things that it's so constrictive to say, and Scott, you were saying for these 8 to 12 people in a room, it's going to be this, whereas your mind never would have maybe gone that way or funneled it that way at the beginning with labels. So just want to hear your thoughts on that with labels for writing, in general, in
That's
the
kind of
creative sense when you're working on it.
that's a lot of information. That's a long question.
I'm not a concise guy, sorry.
No, what I would say about writing a poem, I will get up in the morning and write 3 pages. I know a lot of people have that practice. Sometimes I'll be writing, and as I'm writing, I'll realize, oh, a poem is happening. And it's when you are no longer, hopefully, controlling it. It's just something in the back of my mind says, mark this page, and I'll put a line on the side of this page and look at it later, because I think so. When you talk about labels or what other people think, I don't care. I do feel like I know when a poem is happening, and I know when a poem is not happening. As he was saying, he called it dream. It is somewhere between a conscious level and a subconscious level. It's somewhere between awake and dreaming, but it's kind of euphoric. I just know I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that writer me, or I'm feeling that poem begin to happen. They just happen. Not that they aren't coming from me, but I really try not to steer the boat, just let it float and let it just occur. I don't know how so labels don't matter at all to me, although I think over time, like if you go back to what I was writing back in the 90s, it wasn't very personal, and it was much more lyric based, or even like slam type stuff. And then as now, I think mine is much more like a narrative. A lot of it is would be considered narrative or even confessional poetry, but I don't really care. It's just what's happening now to me. It's what feels right now. Is
Right.
that a good answer to that?
Yeah,
That
it's
was a
all about
difficult-
chasing
great
down a
answer.
feeling. Yeah, I get you. I agree. So Scott, did you have anything you want to add on to that, or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I mean, if I set to do a book of certain types of poetry, say, like I'm doing all prose poems. So yeah, I'm gonna write a bunch of prose poems. But those don't necessarily even have to have uh I don't know, like a strict form to it either, or the subject matter doesn't need to. So I don't limit myself really unless I have a project that I want to do that's specifically something. And I mean, I know that there's the powers that be in the poetry world that like to see certain things published in certain magazines and yada yada. And, if you try to write a poem for a magazine, you're just already done. Again,
Here's my
I'm
New
sorry.
Yorker poem.
it's just come on. Here's my New Yorker poem.
Yeah.
duh, no. So and I see a lot of younger poets doing that, of really trying to chase some kind of stylistic, well, this is what people are doing now, I'm gonna do this kind of thing. Yeah, poetry is not about that for me. Kind of like what Daniel said, it's whatever feels right for you at the time to express what's in there, and it can take whatever form you want to, and it's not necessarily I'm fighting against the form. I don't really even feel I'm ever doing that. I feel like I'm just free to do whatever the fuck I want to do, to be honest with you. I mean, why not?
Right.
Who cares at the end of the day?
Write it all down and we'll call it poetry later. Could
We're
I
lazy. Yeah,
elbow you guys to maybe read another poem each before we wrap it up here?
sure.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything kind of picked out. I just kind of thought maybe if you guys
wanna-
had something that you were burning to read, or maybe didn't get enough air, as Brendan Constantine says.
Do you want to do the first
Love-
two, or do you want to do like the last two?
Oh,
I'm fine either way, whatever you guys are feeling.
What do you think, Daniel?
Uh,
I really
I
like
don't
the first
know.
two.
Go ahead. You like the first two?
I
Okay, we'll
really
do the
do.
first two. Okay.
Because then it'll be a teaser that people want to buy the book, then just simple
Gotcha.
to just buy the book. Okay. So this one. So what's funny about this is that we didn't start with these two poems. These were like the third and fourth poems, but we eventually like trashed the first two. And then what's funny about these is that they're both in the underworld. So you're starting with the ending, right? Starting with death. So I thought it was kind of fitting. Okay. I asked the ferryman for a map of the underworld. He seems too busy. Wait, why am I in this boat? He turns back to me for a moment and unzips the blistered seat of his face. And inside the endosperm, roots and bat lungs flutter. His uvula buzzes like a nest of wet wasps. And in the opening, there is a light which undoes light. I know now it is too late for bargaining. The best I can manage is obsolescence, a few broken memories, signless streets, faceless coins. I enter gracefully into the unbodied throat as it sings off all of my skin.
Thank you.
The Six of Swords. I don't have a map of the underworld. We won't need one. I'm here to transport you. Don't be afraid. My shoulders are strong enough to carry you across these waters. This is my gondola. This is what I do. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to not grieve. The howling you hear is just what you hear. Weeping hangs like a net above me. Passengers bring no baggage, no body, no breath. See what you need to see while my back is turned away. Listen to the iron footstep of my pole. As we approach the other shore, I will be here. I am always here. You are almost there. You are always there.
Thank you. Fantastic. Whew, gave me chills. Okay, so as we wrap it up here, I guess let the folks know kind of what's coming up next for you guys, and maybe the book promotion if you're going to do any events or any upcoming Zoom chats, and also where they can find your work online.
I'm all over YouTube. Just type Daniel McGinn poet. I am. I've got a lot there. I'm not very good at marketing, as Scott will attest. I recommend you read all Scott's work, like the one where he's talking about swimming. Well, it's a thread that runs through his life. So, and if you read his books, you get to read the whole thread that runs through his life. He's slamming them out. How many books you got coming out, Scott, this year? How many?
I'm trying to get 3 out right now. I was sitting on 2 of them that I had done months ago, but I just was kind of waiting for, I don't know. I don't want people to get sick of me, right? So it's kind of like, how many books are you going to put out? Nobody's going to buy them. So, but then I just decided, what the F? I'm just gonna just publish them. I have some people that I know in the publishing world. Let's get them out. So 3, and then I'm doing 2 collaborations. Two very different poets. One is very surrealistic, and the other one is very much form based. So I'm having to dance back and forth in those 2 worlds, which is kind of neat. But in terms of this book, Meat for Tea is a great press. You can buy it
Yes.
from their website, or you can buy it on Amazon. I think both Daniel and I have websites you can look for.
I don't have a website. No,
You just
I
have
should, I guess. I
Yeah.
I have books that are available where you get books. I got A Thousand Black Umbrellas, The Moon, My Mother, My Lover, and My Dog. and Drowning the Boy are all available along with Fill Me with Birds. So if you want to buy books, you can buy books.
Are they all available?
Um,
Are both of you, are all of your books available on Amazon? Is that somewhere people could find them for
Sure, they would all
or
be
would
there.
you
Yeah.
prefer them go like through the presses? I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would like to say something about Daniel's work, really quick. What kind of got me going in the right direction with poetry in general is when I read My Mother. What's the whole title?
The Moon, My Lover, My Mother, and the Dog.
Yeah, I
It's
was
easy. It's like, the best you could do is to grow, but that's not the title, but something about it never gets stuck in
Yeah.
my brain.
But he just has such an easy way of writing, and just saying the truth, and not getting caught up in word salad, and but also going into this deeper place that it really kind of that book really inspired me a lot and where I am now as a writer. So I would give him credit for really influencing me. His most recent book, well, besides Fill Me with Birds, Drowning the Boy, is fantastic, and it's not really stylistically what you usually see from Daniel.
Mhm.
I
It's
know some people didn't like it because of that, but I don't care. Those are
great. It's great. It's
Yes.
wonderful.
they're just, I don't know. There was a period where I was writing these things, and that's what came out. And I sent it to the poetry contest, and I won, which surprised me because I didn't know what to think of it because it was different, but I was just playing, you know.
You got
Well,
to
it's
follow it down, I mean, chase the feeling.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I am going to wrap it up here, guys, before the Zoom shuts off here. So thank you so much for coming on the show. Fill Me with
Thank you for
Birds
the
is the
invite.
book.
Thank you,
Scott
Eric.
Ferry, Daniel McGinn, Meat for Tea Press. Get that where you get your books, folks. Thank
Oh,
you
there's
so
two
much.
sides to, yeah, there's two sides.
All right. Well, have a great weekend. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you
Cheers.
soon. Bye-bye.